Everybody, Christopher Beast here. In today's video, we're going to be covering every single name POI on Anikken. I'm going to be going from my least favorite to my favorite. This is really my favorite based off which is the best, like what has the best loot, and my least favorite based off which has the worst loot. I will be mentioning and talking why each one is good and why each one's bad, and honestly, I think we should just get straight into this. The worst named location on the entire map is the St. Suzanne's Cross. This is a POI on the far southeastern coast of the southeastern island, and it has barely any loot. It sometimes has a medical crate. The only noticeable thing about this POI is a large cross and that it's close to an exit, but it's really not noticeable at all. Moving on from there, we have the Old Man's Hut. This is the same issue. It's just a normal house that's a single room building. There's a campfire outside and its vantage point is okay, I guess. Sometimes a vinyl does spawn in this building, which is the only reason why it's above the previous location. It also has some, actual loot, but it's really not a good location, and its loot is horrible, and its positioning is also just as bad. Next place is the Griffin location. It has a really long name in its front that I cannot pronounce for the life of me. This northern POI is bad for a lot of reasons. It's so far away from combat zones. It's not really easy to access either because it's far away from anything. And its loot is not good at all. It's 3 worker quarter buildings, which barely spawn anything inside, and a second story only building, which also barely spawns anything inside. It's only above the previous 2 because it is 4 buildings. It looks like an actual POI. The previous 2 don't. They just kind of look like random markers. At least this place looks like a POI. I mean, its loot isn't good at all. It's definitely worse than Old Man's Hut, but at least it looks like a POI. I mean, at least on paper it does. The next location is the cargo ship. The cargo ship has a lot of shipping crates, and sometimes it will have a safe and other things in it, but this is not a great area for actual encounters. It's great for EWIM, but for actual encounters, it's not. The loot is not worth how funneled you get, and combat in here is not great for normal encounters. It's not because it's bad, it's more so because you don't want to be in the situation of really being in this area at all. It's very far away from any of the central POIs. Its combat lane is the north combat lane, which is not really a combat lane many people want to be on. And its loot just isn't worth going this far out of your way for. And, of course, not to mention that if you get pinned here, you're not going to... There's very rarely a good way to get out of a pin in the cargo ship. The one that's better than this, though, is the Lighthouse. The Lighthouse is only good. It's not because of the actual POI, the Lighthouse itself. It's because it has a large 2-story building right next to it. 2 rooms, a hallway, some stairs, a top of stairs, a bathroom, and an attic. That is actually a pretty good room. And this room has some good loot and sometimes spawns finals. This is the only reason why the Lighthouse is above the rest of this list, because Lighthouse is another one of those POIs that's just so far out of the way. It's not on any combat lanes. It's not good tactically. Its loot really isn't worth the walk, but this 2-storied house is good enough loot for the area of the map it's in. Sometimes vinyl spawn, which is useful. Sometimes there's a comm station down here, so it does bring a little bit of combat down here, but overall, not a great location. So far, I've been mainly talking about locations that I think are bad. The next group, going from here on out, are actually good locations. These are locations I like, which is a lot of them, actually. Starting with Island Transit Dock. This POI is really good. It's right next to another POI, but this POI by itself contains a telephone booth and a 2-story barn. The barn sometimes has a comm station spawn. The loot in the barn is always decent. Its combat lane is very nice. It's in the center combat lane. It also gives you a great vantage point over the south combat lane. And really, anyone that wants to cross those bodies of water has to get into your sightline. And the fact that it has a phone there. If you're in the center combat lane, combat's really fun and it's really easy. So, might as well hit the phone, go get some free kills. These are just the reasons why it's better than the previous locations. The next location is... So this is where it gets tight. We have Craftsman Village, Siri Village, and Fisherman Village. These are all very good locations. Like, very good locations. But the worst of these has to be Craftsman Village. Craftsman Village is just too far away. We're back onto that northeastern combat lane. It's kind of where the northern combat lane and the eastern combat lane kind of meet. But nobody really uses the eastern combat lane. So there's that. Adding to the issue, I mean, its loot is amazing. Its spawns are amazing as Disruptor Tower. Sometimes you will spawn very close to it. It's also close to an exit. But it's just kind of too far away for it to be number one. But it's up there. It's a very good location. And if you're in the northeastern side of the map, you might as well just take a little walk over and pop out to see what it's like. Next location. This one was hard between the top two. So number 2 is the Fisherman's Village. This village is located in the center north, and it's filled with buildings. This building is great. Now, why is something that I previously said, hey, the northern combat lane sucks. The northern combat lane is very bad. Well, Fisherman's Village is number 2 because it's the sheer reason that combat lane even exists. And that's kind of a statement. I think if this location didn't exist, most people wouldn't go north. Much like how most people don't go west. West is devoid of any major locations, so nobody really touches the west. This location alone, I think, is the only reason why people go north. It's also the meeting of the northern and the center combat lanes, which means you're going to get a lot of fighting here. And combine that with the amount of good loot that's in this location, I mean, I think this place is great. But it's not number 1. Number 1 is the dead center of the center combat lane, or the center of the map. It's Siri Town. This place has the best loot in the game, also has some of the best spawns, everything ranging from safe to Disruptor Tower to a signal detector to anything you could want. Most likely has a spawn in Siri Town. Siri Town also has a lot of vinyl spawns. It's just a great location. It personally feels like one of the most fleshed out named POIs in any of the maps, and is my favorite for sure. Now, your opinions can differ from mine, and I will have no grievances with that. But I hope you guys got some enjoyment out of this video. If you didn't, I'm sorry. Maybe you learned a couple things about some of these POIs. Maybe you didn't. But this has been Christopher Beast, and I'll see you all next time.